welcome to this demo. I'm really happy to have this picture that somebody sent in. Some of the things that come to my eye is the fact that as I'm coming down the neck here, there's an arc and it comes out this way and then goes back in to the shoulder and back this way again. So we have this almost kind of a lump here. I would like to, it's a very common thing to have happen in different parts of your anatomy if you're not careful. And let me go ahead and just show you what I would suggest. I'm going to take this off. Let's see if we can back this off enough just to get the point across. So now we have thickness that the clothes have. There's a dimension to the material too. And so that shoulder is probably in here somewhere. And yet if I follow this down, I want to make sure that the neck is actually going into the clothes. Now I want to also show that it not only goes into the clothes, but that the collar goes around and behind. And that can be suggested in a very limited way, but what I want to try to do is change the angle and have it coincide with the angle of the neck. This helps us establish that the collar now, the shirt is now going around the neck and the jacket is going around that, each because there's an additional thickness, a dimension to each one of these parts. Now there are a few things here that you might incorporate in that. If you remember this this little rule, and it's a good one to just look at from the light, but look at the shadow that this pencil is casting on the paper. Now I realize we have a blank spot here. This isn't solid, but the farther away the pencil is from the paper, the less defined and the softer and wider the shadow gets. That's because it's farther away. It has a longer distance to have to cast that shadow. When you're down here at this end, the shadow is very tight and clean and almost non-existent where it's actually touching the tip. Depends on how much roundness we have to the tip. But if you think about that, you can apply that method whether you can see the detail in your picture or whether it shows up or not, and have this be a nice little benefit. Instead of having this one line coming down here when we know that the knot of this tie has a thickness to it, it's actually pushing the collar away from the actual shirt. And so I can quickly demonstrate that and take this out of just one line trying to demonstrate it by taking this, having a clean edge, and now coming this way and having a wider shadow. Now I want to make sure that I have a soft edge to my shadow so it doesn't compete with this dimensional edge that I've created here. But now it can be very defined here until it just almost becomes non-existent. Here's another place that might just punch up and give a couple more opportunities for dimension. Even though there's a different technique, there's some things that you could probably still do. As it goes back into the jacket, just common sense would tell you probably that it could be darker here, it would be darker. And so it's a rule that's so consistent and so useful that you can really follow it. So now there's one other thing that there's a couple other things that my eyes went to. Because there are no real dark lines over here, I notice that this one is quite dark here on the outside of the nostril, and it's partly because it's only represented by a line. Now I'm going to back this off just a little bit and make this into a shadow edge instead. An edge to value, because without a doubt this nostril is going around and out of our sight and creating a clean edge. But now I want to cast a shadow on the face instead of having that dark line representing the edge of the nose. So there's a number of things that we could emphasize. We could come in here and establish where does the iris go underneath the eye, make a clean edge. We could establish where the ear goes in under the hair. Usually this flange on the ear has a little bit of around and out of sight here, so we could have probably a fairly clean, every ear is unique, but this is probably fairly clean, and I want it to be darker where it goes underneath, underneath the hair, naturally, because it's where there's less light. This right here, the little part on our ear that's kind of like a wind deflector there, naturally that's a clean edge, and we could make this recessed back further, giving the ear a definite dimension there. There's a few things that we could go ahead and we could make darker, because again, it's where there's less light. We could shade some things like this down, especially the one that's over on the dark side of the nose, but those aren't really the most important things. If this is quite a bit of hair in this front wave here, we can take this and create our clean edge and cast a shadow here as well. Now, there is a difference here in that the forehead is round, so we could also take into consideration the roundness of the forehead, and that shadow will change just a little bit. It'll actually get almost a little curved there. And then some of these things, there might be an eraser that caused this or whatever, but the wrinkle coming down, the fold coming down, does not completely come to this line. And if you're drawing with my technique, I think I would probably continue stressing complete that, so that you have the ultimate opportunity to suggest dimension. When you stop short, it just sometimes does not communicate as much as it could. Now, I think this is just, again, a wonderful picture. It looks like maybe this knot, if this were its the narrower part coming out of the knot, it would maybe be a little farther away from the shirt, and you could very well do something like this again, showing that the shadow is wider there. These are all little things that are principles that hold true regardless of the media, the technique, and also regardless of whether you can see that detail. There's some safe things that you can do. I suggest you not try to fake anatomy, detail, things that you're not really familiar with, but when you're working with light, you've got that advantage. When you're working with an angle, you can go ahead and make sure that that angle is believably continuing on in the form that even, it just makes sense. That shadows, can really be a little more effective and make sense if you're using the form that I've told you. So anyway, just love this picture once again. I was just so excited to see this. Just really excited to have the opportunity to show it, and I hope you're having fun drawing, and I thank you again. We'll see you in the next demo.